Hi everyone, and welcome back to another Galatians study. I'm glad you're here. Last week we talked about the good news of Christ was being turned into bad news to the church of Galatia. And we're going to talk more about that later and what the bad news actually was. But today we're going to be talking about what gave Paul the ability to call out this bad news happening that was going on in Galatia. And that was Paul's ability to be able to say that he was under God's authority alone. Let's check out Galatians chapter 1, verse 1. It says, "Obviously, I'm not trying to win the approval of people, but of God. If pleasing people were my goal, I would not be Christ's servant." Hear that. If Paul's whole goal was just to please people and make them feel good about what they already believe or what they're doing, then that he would not be God's servant. And you might be asking yourself then, well, if he's not saying hard things and he's only saying good news stuff that makes you feel good, then what is he talking about not pleasing people? If the good news is good news and that's all he's going to say is good, easy news, then why does it matter? Well, first off, let me just say that that's not what Paul is doing here. You see, he's preaching the good news. That doesn't mean it's necessarily easy news to accept, and that is because the good news is often counter to what we personally want to believe. It doesn't often fit in the narrative that we have already built in our lives. And so that is why Paul is saying, I'm not following human authority here, I'm following God's authority. And I don't aim to please people in my ministry. No, I'm trying to please God. And that's why I want to bring the good news to you. Even though that this good news may be counter to what feels good to you at this time. Now, it's a balance. It is for sure a balance that Paul is trying to strike here, because the good news might be hard to hear. However, it is still good news. It still brings love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, patience, and self-control, which is what Paul talks about in Galatians chapter 5. We'll get there someday. So what does this mean for us? It means that our first goal in life should be to please God. It's not to please others. It's not to please the religious authorities, the governmental authorities. It's not to please any authority, human authority in our lives. It's God, God alone, only God. And it's to humble ourselves under that fact so that we might be able to receive what God has for us, no matter how hard it is for us to hear. And that means changing how we believe about God as we grow in our relationship with Him. If we are stuck in one narrative that we believe to be true, and we are unwilling to listen to anything else and to grow in our opinions as we mature in our faith, then that's not following God. Often when we are ingrained in a certain set of beliefs and we're unwilling to ever learn anything else, and we're unwilling to move and shift, it's because we're afraid. It's because we're afraid that if we're wrong in this, then our whole faith might be broken. And fear is a strong motivator, and it's not caused by God. It's caused by people telling you how God is. It's not because we're afraid of who God actually is. It's because of how we're afraid of who we've been told God is. You see, God is loving. God is accepting. God wants you to be a part of His family. He has shown that in sending His Son down for us while we were still sinners so that we might be redeemed. So God has so much grace for you, so much power and love to offer to you. But if there is fear there, if you're afraid of God, if you're afraid of anything with Him, then it's not from God. That is bad news. And you need to hear this so that you might humble yourself and say, you know what, I don't have it all figured out. I don't have it all figured out, and I want to trust God to show me where I have missed the mark in what I believe about Him. And you confess that before God, and you can be healed. Because just like Paul, we all can have this faith that is not reliant on people first, but is reliant on God first, and Him transforming us continually throughout our lives. And if we're willing for that to happen, we're on the right track. So that's what I have for you today. Be willing for God to transform what you believe about Him and what you believe about His good news. I'll see you for the next one.